Okay, Dustin, when we first met, I was surprised to learn from you that there are pyramids in Wisconsin. And if that's not spectacular enough, you also have underwater pyramids over there. I heard that on the ground of Rock Lake, which is near Madison, there's ancient pyramids. And more so, I have read that there's also a 200-foot long stone figure and some ruins of what once could have been a temple or something like that. What do you know about this?
Yeah, the monolith at it's called Missouri Hill. It's off a road called Missouri Hill. I think how it's got its name. But it's in a nature reserve, kind of where people can go hunting and stuff like that. Yeah, there's this one trail that kind of leads to this one spot where it has these 6 foot megalithic structures that are just built in a circle with other smaller stones around it. And I think they might have some connection between as to land or maybe even the pyramids on the bottom of Rock Lake.
I found out that these structures were probably built by pre-Columbian settlers that have been there long, long ago. And then the era was flooded. And now we have these underwater pyramids there.
Mm-hmm. It could have been built before the Ice Age too. And they are elongated pyramids. I guess there was a scuba diver who went down there in the 70s and he saw what he saw down there and he drew it. And again, this murky water, I think the pyramid is constantly sinking lower and lower because I think the first settlers that came here saw them poking out of the water, and they were asking the Native Americans what these were, and they were saying that these were the stone teepees of the ancient ones and other ancient cultures that were here or lost to time. Frank Joseph writes a book about Wisconsin, Atlantis in Wisconsin, and maybe has a theory that there's been some lost cultures here, pyramid builders, like to Aztalan. Again, it's just very mysterious of all these. Again, Wisconsin, not known to have pyramids and mysterious land giants and shit. Yeah, it's really kind of crazy.
It is. I heard about this legend that native people built these structures in the valley as some kind of, let's say, gift or sacrifice to their gods. And the gods have been gracious and flooded the valley with water. And now these structures are underwater, so the legend says. Also very interesting. Are you familiar with Archie Ashbourne? He's some kind of an archaeology enthusiast, and I think he founded or is part of the Rock Lake Research Society, which is a group that is doing research on the underwater pyramids and all that goes along with it. Are you familiar with this guy?
No, tell me more.
I just found out about him today. I read a few articles, and his name was part of it. And there are some people that claim that these pyramids are nothing more than a natural rock formation. What do you think? Could this be possible?
The fact that there's multiple, I think there's 10 pyramids on the bottom of Rock Lake, and they're all in the same shape and elongated. I don't know. Again, there is mysterious rock formations in Wisconsin. There's another rock formation that is called I think it's the Black Falls River Pyramid. Let me get back to you on that. Anyways, it is this one single stone that sits alone with no other stone structures around it. And then there's carvings. Like I think Native Americans been carving into it since the dawn of time. And it sits on a private property. We kind of looked into it because I wanted to go up there and check it out myself. But again, I don't want to get shot walking into someone's property. But yeah, it's very mysterious. Actually, I have pictures of that I'll send to you.
What kind of carvings can we find there?
You really can't see it because they're not really up close. All these pictures are from like the early 1900s. Mm-hmm. But you obviously can see something like shapes that obviously look like they've been carved into it. I don't know if it's a language or symbols or there are other rock carvings in Wisconsin, like this kind of bulbous looking gods that are holding a stick, or it kind of reminds me of some other legends and ancient cargo cults from South America.
Yes.
With the Kayapo Indians.
Yes.
And Beb Karoti.
Yeah, I thought so too when I did my research on that stuff. I read another article about this guy, Max Noel from Wisconsin. And he apparently was a diver back in the 30s. And he one day dove in Rock Lake and found this stone structure that looked like, I think it said like an ice cone. And he probably was one of the first people who found one of the pyramids down there. But there were others before him, fishermen
Yes.
talked about these structures for a long time already, I think. Yeah, one day he went down there again and he saw another pyramid like structure, which was built from small rocks that were put together. Max Knoll was an engineer, and he said that this was not a natural rock formation. No way. This was built by someone. But they didn't believe him, and so he decided to go back once more and do even more research. But unfortunately, he died before he could start his
Mm.
research. He and his wife got into a crazy accident, and both of them died.
That's pretty shitty. Again, someone's again had the drive and said he saw something down there. Again, I think these might be the pyramids that he sketched. Those elongated.
Tell us more about this strange humanoid-looking mound. It looks like a human, but with a head that has, let's say, some kind of horns, maybe.
That's the man mound in Baraboo. Gone there a few times. It's awesome. It's huge, and you can really only like appreciate it from seeing it from the sky. So again, when you go there, it reads that like these Native Americans are predicted or depicting a powerful god. I love how they say powerful god, and you have to wonder to yourself, what powerful god? Enough do they want to attract it again? Because there are four other man mounds that got destroyed back in the early 1900s when they were making roads and houses and stuff like that. That's why when you see this mound, its legs on the bottom got cut off because we are making roads back then until they realized it was a mound. But again, that these Native Americans were trying to entice this creature back to interact with, again, with like the Nazca lines, like they wanted to see from above, and uh again started like a somewhat of a cargo cult over this creature. And it has this bulbous head with this like horns, and it's huge. Again, it just doesn't look quite human.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
saw the picture of it, and I also had to think about the Nazca lines. I read that originally it was 214 feet long, which is 65 meters. Like you said, you already mentioned it. When the road was built, they destroyed the object. They cut off its legs, which is pretty bad, man. It's really bad. I saw the pictures where they painted the legs, and it looks hilarious. But you get an idea how big it was. I read another article that said that some believe this could have been some kind of ancient burial mound.
That's one reason why when they did, go through the legs, they might have found, oh, there's some bodies here. Maybe this is a mound of some sort. Yeah. Most Native American mounds have bodies in them. Some don't, and just are honored to these things that they saw in the sky, or they're trying to entice something that they saw in the sky. Like the Thunderbird is a very popular one. There's another rock carving and rock paintings of the birdmen here in Wisconsin.
Hmm.
Birdmen. You think about birdmen. Easter Island had birdmen, and talked about these gods helping these people with agriculture and mathematics and moving gigantic stones.
You can't help but think about the ancient alien theory. That's crazy, man.
No, exactly.
And like you already mentioned, there's more of these mounds. And just like the Nazca lines, you have different animals here, like birds, bears. I saw bears, and there's something that has let's say, a conical shape. And they also look spectacular. And there's some that could be frogs or even turtles, maybe. Native Americans talked to the archaeologists, and they said that these mounds are holy to them, but their ancestors did not build them. They had been there long before their ancestors.
Wow.
This is very interesting.
That's interesting too. Yeah.
Very interesting. Researchers say that these structures are probably 1,000+ years old. You mentioned that these pyramids could be older, right?
It could be the fact that the ones that are underwater, it has to be before the ice age. Dundee Mountain, that was naturally made. It's a gigantic hill, but it looks like a mountain from a distance. But again, it was made through, there was like a river going underneath the glacier, and all these boulders were getting, tossed down by this gigantic current, and then just kind of one day just kind of started stacking up on top of each other, and it built this mountain. But enough where there's been a lot of weird paranormal activity happening there. The Native Americans called it Spirit Hill, and now there's been UFO sightings over that mountain for since the 1940s. So it makes you wonder if there was like special properties underneath all that, minerals, or I don't know what exactly what attracts a UFO to keep coming to the same spot. You know, sometimes I was always guessing something in the ground that's important, or there's ley lines.
And if you think about the fact that there's 3 states over there that claim to be the capital, the UFO capital of Wisconsin, it's because there's a lot of UFO sightings for decades. Back to these structures, what's interesting is that, like we already stated, that if you look at it from the ground, it's not even that spectacular. But if you view it from the air, it's absolutely crazy, man. And
Yes.
it makes one think about the Nazca Lines for sure. What's the purpose of these objects if you can't see them from the ground? That's what I also think when I think about the Nazca Lines. How can you create such an exact structure from the ground when you have no technology to observe this shit from the air? This is
Yeah, I totally agree with you, dude. It's a big mystery. Again, with tools, every time they talk about their tools, they credit it to the gods. You know, it's like, well, then these people ain't lying.
yeah.
I don't know.
Whether they were made by, let's say, mathematical geniuses who
Sure.
calculated everything exactly where which line must go and shit like that, or do we really have to throw in the ancient alien theory here?
Mhm.
Both would be spectacular. Even with mathematics, you have to be very clever to sort that shit out.
Yeah.
Let's talk about these skeletons they found. I read
Mhm.
that in 1912 they found, I think, 18 skeletons when they opened one of these mounds. Whoever these remains belonged to, they were very large in size. Those skeletons are as big as or as large as, I think, 7.6 up to 10 feet. Pretty big for a human being. What else is interesting? The skulls show a unique facial structure. That's what I read. Their heads said to be elongated. The article said the elongated skulls could be maybe due to a longer life cycle than the average human being. I don't know about that, but sounds very interesting. All in all, they do not look like the average human beings. Another thing that's very interesting is that the article said they have a double row of teeth,
Mhm.
6 fingers and 6 toes, which is
That's
also very
correct.
interesting. I also heard that before from another region of the world.
Mhm. Yes.
What can you tell us about these skeletons?
Yeah, like you said, as in 1912, the year they found them. Anyways, it was two teenage kids that went into a cave, and yeah, they found these 18 10-foot erect, fully mummified skeletons. And they were just like, whoa. So they went back to their town and told people, and they all went there and found all this shit. And archaeologists went there just totally wigged out. And I heard that they took those skeletons to the Chicago Museum, and people who went there and saw them started really wigging and started like saying that this isn't right. This can't be right. You know, and they took them off display, and all those bodies kind of just disappeared unless they're hidden in a basement somewhere, or the government took them away, or but again they were shown for a little bit, enough where people freaked the fuck out. Their image must have made such a crazy impact, you know, especially if you're one of the Bible believers, and the fact that like there were a lot of witnesses. I can only imagine if some of them were still alive, what they could have said, or
Yeah,
you know,
you
I don't know.
mentioned the Bible. Makes you
Yeah,
think if these are giants as mentioned in the Bible. In
sure.
Genesis 6:4
Mhm.
says, "In those days the giants were on earth, and also after that, when the sons of God went in unto the daughters of men, and they bear children to them." Have
The
to
hybrid children of
hybrid,
extraterrestrials. Yeah.
right?
It's so awesome. Again, I love these old stories of the Bible, and seeing them through a different eye, you know what I'm saying? Than the whole like, oh, they're just speaking poetry and shit. Like, well, no, like these people who are gathering these stories are fucking very important. Sorry that they didn't have the language or the vocabulary to describe what the fuck they're seeing and witnessing and what the hell is actually going on. All these holy books have the same exact stories with different names. And but yeah, again, with Wisconsin being so rich with ancient cultures and lost cultures, kind of like the people who created Aztlan, like Native Americans that were living in the area said that these people came from afar and they were dressed differently. They set up shop and built a gigantic wall and waged war with other Indians and practiced cannibalism. And then just one day they just dropped everything and just disappeared out of thin air almost because there was no sign of war or sickness. And there's still digs at that spot every summer with UW students. And they keep finding shit there. Like they found mammoth bones and they found spearheads and other crazy stuff and potteries. And they actually have like a little museum right next to Aztalan of all those stuff they found. And then they have this again, they have this one princess they cherished. And when she died, I guess a group of them went to the Atlantic Ocean just to grab seashells to be buried with her. So I can only imagine what journey that would have been just to grab some seashells.
Back to the skeletons. I tried to find credible sources online, but
Mhm.
man, there's so much fake stuff and bullshit out
Sure.
there. It is so hard to find anything, like I said, credible. The thing with these giants makes me wonder if there's a direct connection with the humanoid structure. We've been talking about this giant mound, humanoid-looking mound.
Sure.
I don't know, man. I'm curious about these horns.
Yeah, right.
I don't
Or it
know.
could be like a headdress to it too. If you mean, or it could be horns. Who knows?
Yeah, or a
The
helmet.
fact that yeah, helmet, because the head is very bulbous too, and his body looks like it's just doesn't have fingers, though it has like these like mitts. Kind of reminds me of Pestigula.
Yeah, Pascagoula monster. Yeah,
Yeah.
Pascagoula alien. Yeah, that's true.
I'll just think about that now. That's
Wow,
kind
interesting
of yeah,
thought.
right.
I did read that someone said they recreated the look of a Viking. They saw a Viking because Vikings passed by with the ships and stuff
Mm,
like that, and they recreated a Viking. But in reality, Vikings didn't have these helmets with these horns. That's not the reality.
no,
They didn't have horns on their helmets, so I think it's not a possibility.
Wisconsin's right next to one of the largest lakes in the world, Lake Michigan. There, and
Mhm.
they found structures on the bottom of Lake Michigan of like monoliths with mammoth carvings on the bottom of them.
I found another report on these amounts, and this article is from December 20th, 1897. So very old article, and it's about 3 large burial mounds that have been found in Maple Creek, Wisconsin. One of them was opened. So the report says, let me quote that. In it was found a skeleton of a man of gigantic size. The bones measured from head to foot over 9 feet and were in a fair state of preservation. The skull was large as a half bushel measure. Do you know what the bushel is? A bushel is, I think, an older unit of measurement. A half a bushel is 7.5 to 18 liters.
Still as big as head.
And some finely tempered rods of copper and other relics were lying near the bones.
Mm.
Interesting. So we have a skeleton which is over 9 foot, and another of these burial mounds found 1897. Man, that's very interesting.
Wow.
Over 9 feet. You do not hear a lot about this in the news, ain't you?
No.
Yeah,
And again, I think a lot of this was trying to be hush hush, especially when this stuff was starting to come out in the early 1900s. It is hard to find a credible source on everything, but yeah, it is more like the word of mouth and trickling down. I'm pretty sure Native Americans here that have a lot of history in Wisconsin know a lot more. What's what?
yeah. Are we talking about, I don't know, a big cover up? Or is it all just a legend? But to be fair, I also read that in all of these old articles where they talk about how the skulls are in a strange shape and have these strange facial features, They do not mention the size of the skeletons. Only a few reports, like this very old report from 1897, but the 1912 report, I think they do not mention any kind of size. But the statement that the skeletons were extremely large came much later, I read. But I haven't done much research on that yet. I'm still going through all these old reports, so I can.
Sure. Or even if these people practice head binding and other forms of body modification, it usually stems from seeing something themselves and wanting to imitate it. So again, if these even is normal people with elongated skulls or other forms of body modification.
Just today I found out that in 2013, I saw a YouTube video about that. It's very interesting. And then I did some research on Google. In 2013, a pyramid-shaped mound has been found by a fisherman near the Azores in the Pacific Ocean. And he found it between the two biggest islands of this archipelago. The base of this pyramid forms a perfect square. And the height is, I think it's at 60 meters. So, which is, I don't know, 60 meters in feet. I don't know. I'm not sure. And another interesting fact is that the pyramid is oriented by the cardinal points. This is very interesting. Let me quote from an article I found on this subject. It says the pyramid was found in an area of the mid-Atlantic that has been underwater for about 20,000 years. Considering that this happened around the time of the last ice age, when the glaciation was melting from its peak 2,000 years ago, any civilization, human or otherwise, that existed before the ice age could be responsible for building that pyramid. So I see similarities with the pyramid where you at in Wisconsin.
Yeah, again, it's just very mysterious. And I wish my school would tell us more about Wisconsin history. I had to figure all this stuff out outside of high school and other stuff like that. That Wisconsin was so rich with ancient culture that we have fucking pyramids here. And I'm like, what the fuck? Why don't we learn about this shit? I don't know. It's just very mysterious too that we just don't learn much in school about our own state's culture.